Hey, you want to know how to build this chair? Stick around. Well, to start, I always have a good look to my stock, so I don't have stock with imperfections. So no cracks or anything, because the frame is quite narrow. You don't want to have that, because it's gonna make it insecure. So when I found stock that I was going to use, I then set it all out. So in this case, I have special power. I already have it. So what I want to do, I want to match as much as possible from one piece of oak. I think it looks better when the color of the wood is all the same. It's not always possible, but when it's possible, I was trying to achieve that. What you do, you just lay it out. Keep in mind that you always have around like 2 or 3 millimeters between the lines of your two templates. So I do this on the bandsaw, and the bandsaw actually cuts 2 to 3 millimeters. So if you put it too narrow to each other, you're gonna have templates that are too small.
So with that all said, I started to cut out all my stock on my bandsaw. I like to take time for this process, so I have clean cuts and I don't have to cut off too much with my router bit. I use my taper jig to clamp it down, also double-sided tape, and that holds my template on my workpiece so I can go over my router table with a bigger surface, which make it more stable to work with.
So to get this joint exactly the same as this, I use my table saw, my miter gouge, and I'm not gonna look for the right angle, I'm just gonna match it with my template. If this is exactly against my saw blade, put everything down. So if you can see it, I have here the line of my left side of my saw blade. So what I now will do, I will just line this up with this and with that, so I know exactly where my cut will come.
So after cutting all my angles, it was time to connect everything together. Therefore I used my festool Domino Jointer, and if you don't have this machine, you can also use dowels. I tried to use as much dominoes as possible, so it's more stable and stronger. So in this frame I can put 2 dominoes in each joint, and to do that I always keeping my depth on the same height from my festool jointer, and do both pieces in one pass before I changing my depth on my festool jointer. Therefore I know both dominoes will fit if I am going to glue this whole thing up. So here I started to glue everything together, and therefore I did just one piece after one piece, so I can keep both sides as similar as possible. And also it's quite more easy if you just need to clamp one leg in regards to do all in one pass. So to be sure that the back parts are exactly the same, so that my angle is right on both sides, I clamp them together so I know during glue up it's all similar to each other.
So with the sides glued together, I still need to do this armrest, but now it's time to do the back and the seating. I will show you how I do that. So I want to keep my armrest exactly the same height from my seating. So what I do, I measure out the from top to here and from the top to here. What is the right measurement for this one? Because you don't start measuring here, you start measuring here, because here you want to end with your seating like this. So your kitchen will become on top of this one, and you don't see from the side your stock. It's going to be too high.
After explaining all that, I continued with making my vertical bars, which I did the same way as I showed you before how I made my sides. So I made one guinea pig, which I used to make sure that my depth is right, and I will drill all my holes on the right way. So after that I laid out all my 7 vertical bars and trying to measure out where they exactly need to come. After finding all my right center lines, I just took them over on my top part and my bottom part and draw them all over, so I can start drilling 8mm holes, which I will going to use for dowels. So I use dowels for this, which is quite handy, so you can play around a little bit more instead of a domino. Also my vertical bars weren't that big, so I couldn't get in a small domino. So with all my holes in place, it is time to start connecting my back part to my seating. Therefore I used also dominoes. Maybe I did too much dominoes in it, but you know, better safe than sorry. After connecting these parts together, I could start working on my rabbet. I needed this to get on my seating band, the black stuff this stuff, and you have to put it on with staples, so you need to have a small rabbet in your chair so you don't feel it when you're gonna sit on it. What wouldn't be the case probably, but anyway, just to make sure. And to check if this stuff is tight enough, yep, you have to do that. You have to drum on it so you can check yourself if it's tight enough, and if so, then you're good to go to nail them to your seating. Here I start working on my armrests. I still need to do those, and I just work until I have the right angle. Therefore I use this vertical table saw jig, which work quite well in this case. And for this corner I just like to eyeball it out on my table saw and just nibbling away every time a small pass until I have the right angle. I only show you one pass, but it took me around 4 or 5 passes to get there. But it's quite easy, simple, handy to have a jig like that. I started to glue my lower part on my seating, so this is all tight enough to glue my back parts, my vertical bars into. So I thought that this would be handy, and it worked out really well. After that I glued my side panels to my main frame, and I like to use this trick. So you just clamp everything together and then you draw all your center lines for your dominoes. So I used as much dominoes as possible in this frame because all the weight needs to carry this joint. So I could do 2 dominoes in each joint, and on the back part I decided to do 3, so 2 horizontally and 1 vertically. And I use this offcut, which is the same thickness from my seating material. So I draw the center line on that and set out basically my dominoes on my sides. I like to clamp my track from my track saw on my workpiece so I can use that as a fence for my domino machine. So with everything dominoed and ready to glue up, it was time to start on the finishing part, and I started to do round over, did as much sanding as possible, because when everything isn't glued all together, it's still way more easy to do sanding and the round over. One thing to keep in mind, I don't do a round over where my 2 pieces gonna be glued together. So I have the best lamination on my joints, and then later I will do by hand just the last bit of round over, which is quite easy. And this chair was a whole lot of sanding, I can tell you that. After that I still needed to cut the right angles on my legs, therefore I used my track saw. I clamped my both pieces to each other so they're exactly the same, and then just cut your legs in the desired height. So I could start working on my final glue up, and I took a little bit of time for this because I knew when I was going to do this is going to be stressful. So all my vertical bars and my sides to each other was quite tricky. And I have to apologize myself, I lost all my footage from the 2 last steps, which is more sanding and applying finish, but I can get you through there. Hand sanding, I don't have to explain, and the finish, I just wipe it on with an old cloth and just wipe it off, and then you have this beautiful result. And well, I think it's beautiful. Please let me know in the comment what you think of the chair, what you think of this video, and if you don't like this video, don't subscribe. But if you like this video, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get a notification when I upload my next video, and see you in the next one, and thanks for watching.